the health is holding in because the consumer has opportunities to substitute, and I think that that is why we're not seeing this broad weakness coming through. So, just as Courtney is sort of highlighting the specifics of Walmart earnings, I know if people are able to still spend significantly on e-commerce and food, but make substitution or decisions there in non-discretionary items, the broad picture actually doesn't change, and that's what the retail sales numbers on Tuesday showed as well. Actually, were stronger than expected. So this health of the consumers we often talk about, and we worry about excess savings shrinking. That's a theme that's actually not really playing up here. Meaning that what we're seeing from Walmart and Target and other retailers is that the U.S. economy is not in a recession at all. In fact, it's actually growing.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly does appear to be the takeaway if you think of it right now as a snapshot of what's happening right now. But looking ahead, are there any signs of concern that you see, anything that has come out of these report cards that make you think, well, actually, there are a few signals flashing red on the horizon we need to watch out for?
Well, the consumer surveys show that inflation is a real issue for many consumers because as these earnings show, people have to buy essentials, and that's what they put their weight on currently, but that goes that far, right? That means that at some point, the substitution that we're seeing and that holds up these earnings results and sales will start to bite into the performance of these companies, because if food inflation doesn't ease or continues to rise, in addition, there's healthcare that costs are rising, rents are actually not easing either, then that's, I think, the worry where we do end up with a consumer that then gets eroded and weakened. And I think that some of the consumer surveys are indicating that is the biggest struggle that consumers have. Yet they're not deterred from spending, but that's ahead of us. So I would be watching that carefully, as opposed to consumers being temporarily worried about, say, a debt ceiling that seems to now be even resolved shortly.
Ben, part of the reason that a lot of these retailers have reported better than expected numbers is because they've managed to raise prices in many categories. If we start to see inflation come off, to what extent are the retailers going to be able to hang on to these higher prices?
Yeah, it's a good point, Julia. And one of the ways a recession actually happens is that you're getting a rapid decline of prices, and there is indications that discounts of retailers are growing. And so apparel is one example. It's the weakest link in the retail performance so far this year. The S&P apparel index is actually down, whereas other retail indices are significantly up. And I think that indicates that idea of that, yes, you have to continue to discount as you're having an inventory that you cannot really work off well enough. Most of all, the margins then start to shrink. And as I think what happens with inflation biting the economy, that it becomes a disinflation and really a deflationary scenario. And we're just not exactly there yet, but that is indeed the case. If you add on the Federal Reserve may continue to tighten, then that accumulation of tightening of financial conditions, tightening of credit conditions leads you to this lower inflation environment with shrinking margins.